Chapter 5 Dance into the Fire, Part 2 Without You. Brianna sat defenceless upon the ground. Her heart was racing as she stared at the large demon looming before her. He glared at the two, a weak angel and a pathetic waste of a demon. There was nothing that he desired more now than to finish them both off and be done with it. But he could not decide which one first. The demon contemplated his choices before ending their miserable existences with sumptuous punishment. The angel's gaze fell over to Uriah. She was cringing in fear from the large demon. What sort of enslavement spell he held over her she would never know, but Brianna knew deep down that she was going to perish beside her once again. She caught Uriah's hand flexing around the metal staff. Chills covered Brianna's body. Is she going to try and fight him off? Could she really overcome such a phenomenal opponent? Brianna tried to react, but her limbs would not move. They were frozen with fear and exhaustion. Even when the demon turned his blazing eyes back upon her, she could not turn away from the grisly terror. "Well, my little treat," he muttered. "I can make my minion watch how a demon truly deals with the scourge of the light. I've waited so long to do this. How I ache to tear your wings off slowly and sweetly." His spittle-covered lips glistened against the dim light, surging up with the desire to do to her all of the unspeakable things that his morbid mind could imagine. The demon took one slow step after another, like an executioner approaching his prisoner. His wicked smile seduced her, leaving her nerves lifeless. It took everything she had to lift her head, watching the final moments of what she would have otherwise deemed a glorious life. He put away the flaming whip, which doused itself out the moment it reached the inner confines of his tattered robes. Reaching behind his back, the demon unsheathed a large serrated dagger. It gave off an eerie red glow, brightening the closer he approached the terrified angel. The black blade curved like a claw, exposing hundreds of tiny teeth, waiting to be used for the purpose for which it was created. The demon raised his arms, both hands clutching the dagger's hilt. The point stood poised high in the air as a guillotine would before emancipating the condemned from existence. Tears poured down Brianna's eyes, the realization of her fate now becoming more apparent. The demon grunted with exertion as the dagger plummeted down upon his victim. Brianna flinched. Her eyes closed to the gruesome world for good. There was a crack of metal as Brianna released one last breath. But the strike never came. She opened her eyes. Just inches from her face were two objects, the dagger's edge and the metal staff that was blocking its path. There before her stood Uriah, facing off against the larger demon. They stood there, motionless for what seemed like forever. The larger demon stared at the actions of the smaller one, but that did nothing except set him into a fit of rage. The demon shook, he convulsed, the strenuous muscles along his hallowed face twisted askew. "What is the meaning of this?" he growled. The timbre of his voice was low, as if gurgled up from the muddiest rock-strewn ground. Uriah stood firm, not relinquishing any ground to the large demon. She tried to keep the dagger at bay, but the demon's strength was beginning to gain over hers. "I will not allow you to harm her," she replied through gritted teeth. The demon watched, uncertain as to why she was so compelled to stop him. But it didn't matter. The purpose for coming to this desolate place had taken on a new form, but the reason was still the same. "Then you will both suffer in hell," he heaved, sending Uriah flying against the rocky wall. Her back hit the rough, jagged texture, stabbing the flesh, sending sharp pains up her spine. She landed with a dull thud upon the ground next to Brianna. Uriah pushed herself back up, pain covering her face, but not enough to hide the rage that was burning deep within. "I've already been there," she heaved. She leapt up in front of the demon, striking him across the face with the end of her staff. The demon flashed a look of shock. The blow sent him staggering back, jolting the dagger from his hand. He reached up, rubbing his hand on the point of impact upon his cheek. Black ooze smeared across his palm, dribbling down his face and onto the ground. "You filthy little whore," his voice raged. "You have forfeited your existence with such an action." As quick as a flash, the demon backhanded Uriah before she could react. Her head lifted into the air, followed by the rest of her body. Before she could hit the ground, the demon kicked her in the chest, sending her flying toward the end of the cliff's edge. She crumbled forcefully to the ground upon impact. Brianna could hear her cry in pain as she lay motionless. With a spirit like never before, Brianna rose up, racing over to Uriah's body. Her vision was a blur. She could barely make out the form on the ground before her. Kneeling down, Brianna checked to see if she was all right. Uriah's eyes flickered, trying to keep consciousness through the pain. The angel's body began to tremble. A sensation she had not experienced since she was a little girl crept over her. Only once in her life had she ever been witness to the brutality that Uriah had to endure. That feeling returned, but this time she overcame it. Holding out her hand, the white staff on the far side of the outcropping flew across the air. Brianna caught the staff as she stood up, taking a stance to face off against the demon. He watched her with a vested interest, curious as to why she would defend an enemy who lay helpless on the ground. "You would risk your life for this worthless piece of trash," he yelled in disbelief. Brianna tightened her grip, holding the staff before her. "This one is precious to me," she replied. "No one shall ever touch her in that way again." And with that, she attacked. Brianna swung her staff around, trying to catch the demon off guard. Each thrust led her closer to the brutal monster. He stepped back, preparing to defend against this menial threat. She parried a few more times before finally twirling around, striking the demon on the shoulder. A spark flew out from the contact. The demon winced in pain, thrusting his shoulder away from the holy staff. He watched again as Brianna struck out once more, this time missing his neck. Overextending herself with the motion, her body leaned too far forward as she was now off guard enough for the demon to counter. His mangled claw of a hand came swiping down upon her back. Brianna screamed as she staggered forward, searing pain following each mark that coursed its way down the full length of her spine. She staggered ahead, but regained herself enough to whirl around and see the demon come crashing down upon her. He raised his razor claws up to strike once again, before a gouging blow caught him in the side, stopping his advance toward the angel. Brianna looked over to see Uriah, staff in one hand, her other clutching at her chest. The demon stopped, annoyed by the pitiful stab wound. He shrugged off the blade's edge with a furious jerk and backed up to observe the two ganging up on him. The two women kept their eyes on the enemy who stood before them, waiting for him to make his move. The demon's head swiveled a few times, trying to keep watch as the two began to move to opposite sides. Brianna could feel the energy starting to leave her. The action was winding down. Her body ached, but the pain from her back still kept her alert and steady. Yet, for how much longer she did not know. All she knew was that now they had a fighting chance. Uriah whirled her staff around with one hand. She had to get one shot in, and that shot had to count. The demon sneered at her, knowing that if she attacked, the other would surely take advantage. He was caught in a standoff. Brianna glanced over at Uriah. For an instant their eyes met. Somehow it appeared as if they understood what needed to be done. A series of information passed between each other's gaze. Uriah nodded to her, trying to convey to Brianna what to do. The angel nodded in reply, hoping beyond all hope that this would work. With every ounce of effort she had left, Brianna struck at the demon. He turned to her, hearing the rush of air before the staff could hit him again. The staff missed as the demon pushed back, leaving inches between himself and the divine rod. That's when he realized it was a ruse. With as much strength as she could, Uriah lifted up her staff, gliding the serrated blade along the demon's back. There was a jolt, then a release, followed by another jolt. The sound of torn flesh echoed throughout the cavern as 2 demon wings fell to the ground. The demon's eyes widened as the shock of the attack barred the searing pain that burned its way across his shoulders. He let out an ungodly roar, shaking the ground around their feet. Brianna hesitated, feeling the reverberating sound penetrate her body. It shook her, but only for a second. A surge of energy rushed behind her as the wings of an angel sprouted up, as if released by a coiled spring. Her mind cleared, the pain easing from her body. She embraced the cool, calm confidence that was the Holy Spirit within. Thrusting her staff, Brianna struck the demon full force in the torso. The demon buckled over from the blow. Uriah spun around one last time, lifting her staff, striking the demon in the face. His head snapped back, followed by the body. The blow caught the demon off balance, sending his spindly arms flailing about. The demon stumbled backward, turning his head before falling. The large black pit came into sight, awaiting the monster to drop into its depths below. The demon thrashed about, trying once more to regain his stance, but the ledge left no room to catch any more footing. With a screaming rage, the demon fell. Unable to recover from the loss of his wings, the insufferable plummeted down into the darkened pit. Uriah fell to the edge of the crevasse, watching her former master until the speck of his outline had disappeared from her vision. She let out a gasp of air, the pain catching up to her body. Brianna struggled to her side, pulling Uriah's shoulders back, not letting her fall to the demon's fate. Uriah's eyes flitted over to the angel, the dull red flames flickering in the pale light. "We make a pretty good team," she breathed, painful air forcing out the last of her words. "Oh, Uriah," cried Brianna, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The demon smiled, though fading through the numbing surge of pain that coursed throughout her body. "I'm the one," she muttered, "who should be sorry." Brianna shook her head as the tears of sorrow welled up along the sides of her reddened eyes. "Ha!" cried a voice from beyond their sight. A mass of wings and metal swirled about before them. Brianna's eyes widened. Athenius had arrived. She gasped at the sight of the battered angel. The robes, which were once bright and beautiful, were now torn in places, laced with black and red stains. His face was contorted with rage at the scene before him, for he was not prepared to deal with what he saw. Brianna quivered with fright. This was not the mentor she had come to know, as he had never shown such furious anger through his actions before. He landed next to the two as the sound of tightened muscle groaned under his beaten body. Athenius did not hesitate to raise his sword, the tip poised to strike at Uriah's neck. "Get away from her, Brianna," he commanded. She stared at him in horror, her head feverishly shaking from side to side. "No, please, Athenius, I beg you!" Her voice quaked in anguish. Athenius reacted to her defiance with such admonishment, his entire body began to shake with fear from her demeanour. "Brianna, I will not tell you again." Athenius strained. "This demon is filled with nothing but deceit and lies. Do not believe a word she says." Athenius stood fast, waiting for her to move so he could end the battle. But she wouldn't move. Brianna sat next to the vile demon, her arms clutched around her tight, as if to protect her from any harm. Athenius's face contorted, for who knew what wicked spell of treachery this lowlife had wrought upon his student? He dreaded the thought of her falling under the influence of a demon, working their way through her love and kindness. But she didn't seem to be under a spell of any kind. He stared at Brianna, her hazel eyes burning their way into his mind. Athenius flinched. Her body reflected a spirit quite unlike any he had ever seen before. A soft light was emanating from her, encircling their silhouettes among the dull red glare of the cavern. Something else was at work here. His eyes averted to the other next to her. The demon shook at the sight of the blade that was hovering against her leathery skin. She was scared, but that did not faze him. He had seen what a deceitful demon was capable of many times before. The muscles in Athenius's sword arm began to twitch. His hand grew wearisome from the earlier encounter with the larger demon. The pulse of battle was easing from his body. He noticed the two appeared as dishevelled as he did, as if they had gone through a great battle themselves. Athenius eyed the wounds that shone upon each of their bodies. They were matching wounds, as if they had been attacked by the same creature. His confusion grew at the odd sight of the situation. He turned to the pair of leathery wings on the ground off to the side. The bloodied stumps were all that remained of the larger demon. But where was he? Athenius looked about, waiting for it to strike at a moment's notice. But there was nothing. His eyes followed a trail of black blood over to the edge of the chasm. There, next to the path of blood, lay two weapons on the ground. Athenius gasped in shock from the sight. He had never seen anything like it before. An angel's staff crossed against a demon's staff. Coolness entered Athenius's soul. It eased the pain from his wounds and relaxed the ache from his muscles. His eyes softened. There was nothing in heaven that could have prepared him for what he was witnessing. A peaceful calm eased into his mind, the sudden realization of what lay before him filling the void of confusion. Never would he have ever realized that this was her. This was the soul they were sent for. The ragged angel lowered his sword. He knelt down beside the two for a more enlightening view of what had really happened. The horrific look of enragement had vanished from his face. Now it was replaced with love and understanding for what these two had gone through without him. He patted Brianna on the head, for it was she who had taught the lesson today. The ultimate lesson of true love and compassion, a love even he had almost forgotten. Brianna smiled at him, but it faded as she turned to her wounded friend. Never in her life as an angel could she have dreamed of a moment like this. To her, destiny had played a bigger chance in her friend's redemption than she did. To Athenius, it appeared as if Brianna had discovered the existence of a long-lost sister. Perhaps she is, he thought. Perhaps she is. The swirling lights and mist entranced her vision, but she knew better than to trust her eyes during these types of encounters. Uriah concentrated, trying to focus her mind on where she needed to be. She had hoped that by falling asleep, she could reach out to Brianna and find out what had been happening in her absence. But since she was so far removed from heaven, her mind was troubled in dealing with the connection she was attempting to make. She had no clue as to how far she had fallen. Uriah did not have time to notice before being thrust down into the depths of existence, tossed away like discarded trash along the roadside. The journey was almost endless, yet there also appeared to be intent to where she ended up. Whether or not darkness sent her there on purpose, Uriah could not say. She was far removed from the watchful eyes of her peers. All she could do now was hope someone was looking for her. The long journey back loomed in her mind as she had to settle with what had happened, for now at least. Beyond the illusionary wall of changing mist, a larger light shone off in the far distance. To her relief, It appeared as if her prayers were being answered. The light was slow, yet started to loom steady, as if searching for her from afar. It began to drift about, approaching her presence through her mind's eye. Uriah frowned. "Brianna," she called out, "I'm over here." The light increased its fevered pace, the suddenness of what it found filling it with urgency. Uriah watched the light shooting straight toward her like an astral ray. The flash of speed worried her, giving her the sense that things may not be going so well in her absence. The light grew in size and intensity. Uriah was able to embrace its warmth as it enveloped her, her arms and legs pushing through its liquefied plane of transparency. She stepped out into the large grassy field that swept against her tattered robes. It danced about the swift breeze, filling Uriah with a temporary feeling of relief. She turned around, feeling the presence of someone approaching. "Where are you?" asked Brianna, her image stepping out of the light that carried her soul. Uriah flashed a rather upsetting look. "I ended up stuck on this barren planet you sent your little hero to," she spat out. "What the heck are we doing out here anyway?" Brianna's surprise emerged out of her facial expression. "You are there, with him?" Uriah nodded, her amethyst eyes growing with her frustration. "Yes," she fumed. "I was hoping you could fill me in, so I could at least prepare him for what's to come." Brianna glanced about with nervous eyes. They darted around, checking to see if maybe someone else was there besides Uriah. "Is he there, with you?" Uriah's rainbow-coloured eyes stared at her friend. The former demon exhaled with annoyance at the repetitive question. "Yes," she started in confusion. "No, I mean, he's here. He went looking for something, only we don't know what. Can you please tell me what it is we're supposed to find here?" Brianna tried to compose herself, but the tinge on her cheeks could not contain her feelings. She averted her gaze, trying to keep focus on what was being asked. Uriah shook her head, for she saw what was going on. "You're in love with him, aren't you?" Brianna cowered back, her horrified face not hiding anything. "No," she replied. "I can't. I mean, we can't. It isn't allowed." Uriah tried to weed through the stammering, but she could not help but feel sorry for her foolish friend. "Brianna," she breathed, trying to keep her voice cool and calm. "We are supposed to be on a mission. If I could, I would switch places with you in a heartbeat. But since that stupid demon thought it was better to throw me down here and not you, we're kind of stuck." "I'm sorry," replied Brianna. "Since you've been gone, I've had difficulty keeping focused on what I'm doing. I'm just feeling a little scared, that's all." Uriah shook her head. Why they picked her she would never understand. But there had to be a reason for it. There had to be a reason for them to be going through any of this. That was the only piece of hope Uriah was able to hold on to. "I'm sorry that things turned out this way," said Uriah, folding her arms. "But you need to step up and take control. This is your mission. You are the one in charge here. I'd probably just get in the way at one point or another, mess things up. You know how I am." A small smile formed on Brianna's face as the words gave her some form of comfort. Uriah was right. She had to maintain control of what was going on from above. But now that Uriah was there, Brianna began to feel better, knowing that her hero would be looked after. She did not have to worry about his safety with her best friend by his side. "There is a ship there," Brianna started. "A massive ship, capable enough to stand against the armies of evil." Uriah's green eyes fluttered in surprise. "There is? Why didn't you say so earlier? This will help us out tremendously." She gave Brianna a nudge. "See, you know what you're doing." "Yes, well, it was easier with you here," she giggled. "Please take good care of him. Don't let them find him." Uriah nodded, but then slowed, her eyes narrowing. "Is there something else?" Brianna looked away, her hesitation revealing her answer. But she didn't want to say why. There may be a small contingent of demons that arrived there when you did, she spoke. It seems as if darkness is trying to see what will happen when it attacks him with you there. I would have expected him to send more, but he's playing very cautiously for some reason. Uriah's blood began to get hot. She was finally going to see some action. Then I will show him what a hell-bent angel is really capable of, she sneered, clenching her fist. I'll keep an eye on him for you, I promise. It's the least I can do while I'm here. Brianna nodded, relieved by her words of confidence. Thank you, she replied, her image and light beginning to pull away. Please, Uriah, take great care, for they will be relentless in their pursuit of him. I will, finished Uriah, watching the light drift away from her sight. Take care of yourself as well, Brianna. The light twinkled one last time before falling away from her sight. Uriah heaved a sigh. This time it was of contentment. Things were not looking so bad after all. But a small feeling of uneasiness crept over her, as if an array of shadows were drawing near to where she was. Her urgency increased. She knew what they were, and they were here sooner than she had expected. She needed to warn Devin. Her mind closed, rushing back to awake its body.